National Chairman of the All Progressives Congress, APC, Senator Abdullahi Adamu, met with senators elected on the platform of the ruling party behind closed doors yesterday in Abuja. Speaking with journalists after the meeting, the APC caucus in the Senate, Adamu said the party was worried by the gale of defections among senators. He, however, said it was a usual occurrence in election periods and not peculiar to the ruling party. 2 senators from Bauchi and Imo states resigned their membership of APC and PDP yesterday, further compounding the woes of their parties. That was as other senators from the ruling party, who were said to have planned their defection for next week, gave conditions under which they will halt the trend. A chieftain of the APC and former Minister of Aviation, Femi Fani-Kayode, hinted that no fewer than 22 more APC senators might dump the party for the main opposition PDP soon. Similarly, the new Senate Minority Leader, Senator Philip Aduda, yesterday boasted that the opposition PDP would soon form the majority in the Senate if the gale of defections by APC senators was sustained. Meanwhile, human rights lawyer Femi Falana is asking the Independent National Electoral Commission not to accept candidates who did not participate in primary elections. Falana was speaking in response to reactions trailing INEC's rejection of Godswill Akpabio's senatorial ticket. The human rights lawyer argued that the electoral body has been empowered by the electoral law to reject candidates who did not emerge from valid primaries. Falana, in a statement obtained by Arise News, said, the statement that INEC does not have the power to reject names of persons submitted by political parties that did not emerge from valid primaries is grossly misleading. In fact, the embarrassing statement amounts to abdication of statutory duty under the provision of Section 84, subsection 13, which states that where a political party fails to comply with the provisions of this Act in the conduct of its primaries, its candidate for election shall not be included in the election for the particular position in issue. Well, that's Femi Falana, SAN, responding to a statement by the National Commissioner, Mohammed Haruna, that INEC is under the obligation of just presenting whatever names a party gives to INEC, and he's completely rebutted that with statutory provisions to prove his point. And that clearly flies in the face of the Electoral Act. But I'll wait to hear your comments. But just briefly about the gale of defections, of course that was going to happen. There are lots of hurt feelings and ruffled feathers as a result of the primaries that were conducted. According to Senate President Ahmed Lawan, 70% of senators are not returning. His political fate remains hanging in the balance. According to the Speaker, Femi Gbajabiamila, it's a result of the delegate system that the National Assembly really tried so hard to impose some kind of democracy, some kind of sanity. But obviously we can see that the governors had their way. So there was bound to be some kind of reaction to that.
Okay, I don't know how much time we have, but let me start with Femi Falana SA. That was an issue that we treated on this program earlier this week when we had a conversation with Festus Okoye, the INEC director in charge of voter education, voter mobilization, and all of that. And he made a point on that day that, look, it's not INEC's problem, what the parties do. That is the affected candidates who should go to court. If they go to the Federal High Court, and then they insist that, look, they are the validly elected persons in the party primaries that should be on the ballot. And that's the case with Machina from Yobe North, challenging the decision to field Senator Ahmad Lawan, who did not take part at all in the primaries. So Mohammed Haruna, who is our boss, Mr. Mohammed Haruna, very veteran journalist, one of the icons of the journalism profession in Nigeria, now responding to Mikey Guinea, resident electoral commissioner in Akwa Ibom State, because Mikey Guinea has been quoted as saying, look, no, if you don't follow the rules, then you can't be on the ballot. So Mr. Mohammed Haruna was also more or less echoing what Dr. Festus Okoye said, to the effect that it's the responsibility of the parties to field their own candidates, and it's not the responsibility of INEC. What Femi Falana, SAN, has now done is to point out one notorious issue that we're dealing with with the repeal of the Electoral Act 2010 as amended, Section 31 of the Electoral Act 2010 as amended, yes, pointed out that, yes, INEC cannot dictate to political parties the kind of candidates that they should field and the conditions thereof. But that has been addressed in the new act, Electoral Act 2022. And Femi Falana, SAN, is standing on terra firma by drawing attention to the fact that in Section 20, people are confusing Section 31 of the Electoral Act 2010 with the new provisions in the new act. Section 29, subsection 1, applies, where candidates that parties present for election, they are supposed to emerge from valid primaries. And what is the validity of the primaries? The primary election must have been monitored by INEC. That position is upheld in Section 84(1) of the same Act and further amplified in Section 84, subsection 13 of the same Act, that any candidate that does not emerge from a validly conducted primary monitored by INEC cannot be said to be a proper and fit person for the election. And hence, Falana goes further to say that in the case of Ahmad Lawan and Godswill Akpabio, both men were busy with presidential primary. They did not submit nomination of expression of interest form or nomination letter, but with affidavits, as stated also further in Section 84. They were more interested in the presidential election, where Akpabio stepped down for Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and Lawan went ahead and came third. So if you didn't take part in the process, the party cannot now come around. That's the plain common sense in your face argument that Falana is pushing. You cannot now come around and say, you are a candidate. From where? Not having followed the process. So for INEC to now say, oh, no, it's the parties that decide. I know there have been a plethora of cases in which it is said, look, parties have control over their own affairs, but the Electoral Act 2022 has provisions that many people do not understand yet. And there's this continuing confusion. And I hope that apart from creating food for lawyers, the major stakeholders will sit down and try to read what the Act says and try to understand it. So I'm on the side of Femi Falana in this matter in terms of his interpretation. And I hope that INEC will be properly advised. INEC has a legal department. So their lawyers should not behave like the legislative assistants in the National Assembly who allow the lawmakers to shoot themselves in the foot and keep themselves out of the process, only to come and be crying woof, 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 woof later. That is that about that. Now, as for the gale of defections, yes, on Tuesday, three senators said they were stepping down, that they were leaving from one party to the other. From Katsina North, Keita. Keita says in Katsina that there is no internal democracy in the party, that there is confusion in the party, that critical stakeholders in the party have been excluded in Katsina. And he even went further to say, small people like me do not have a chance. So what kind of party is that where some people are small, some people are big? And then you also had Gumau, who did not, like Keita, move from APC to PDP. He moved to NNPP. His own concern also, he represents, what's that, his constituency again? I don't immediately remember. But it's also about internal democracy. He said, yeah, I remember now. He says his politics, his ideals align more with that of NNPP. Then in Edo North, you have Senator Ali Kimena. He too left the party because he said that, look, the party is factionalized. There are parallel executives, confusion, chaos, disappearance of internal discipline. Okay, before these three persons, we had before, the majority leader of the APC, who also said he was leaving the party. He too complained about internal democracy. There was also Senator Adamu Aliero from Kebbi Central. Adamu Aliero said he was leaving the party because the governor of Kebbi State was not making it possible for other people to be members of the party. Now on Wednesday, yesterday, we had more defections, including Senator David Jika from Bauchi Central. He left from APC to NMPP. And then there is the man from Imo East, Senator Onyemuchi. Senator Onyemuchi left the APC, the PDP in his own case. He left the PDP to go to Labour Party, also citing crisis within the APC. Then, okay, when Senator Adamu Abdullahi went to the Senate yesterday to hold meetings to save the situation, as it were, as he said, okay, he said it's not only the APC that is having a gale of defections. Yes, he's right on that score. After all, in the PDP, I've cited Senator Onyemuchi. There's also Senator Kola Balogun from Oyo State, who decided to leave the PDP to the APC. So you have in these political parties, movements, this way, that way. But if you isolate all the issues raised, lack of internal democracy, the autocracy of the governors, which the lawmakers try to prevent in the electoral 2022, but they did not succeed. And then you also have, the absence of internal democracy. Many of them lost their positions. So politicians will say, we are fighting for survival. They want to remain relevant. And it's not only in the Senate. Even at the level of the House of Reps, there is Honorable Shina Pella, who said he was leaving to go to the Accord Party. He too was citing issues about internal democracy, which was a point that was made by Yakubu Mahmoud during the review of the 2019 general elections. Yakubu Mahmoud, chairman of INEC, told everybody that, look, these politicians, if they don't pay attention to internal democracy, they will continue to constitute problems. We see clearly that they have not learned their lessons. So Senator Abdullah Adamu had a meeting and all that. We're told that the senators of the APC who are defecting, they say all they want is just justice. Which justice are they going to get when they have already lost their tickets? Yeah, he says it's a normal thing that should happen, but he himself was truthful, Senator Adamu, that is, in saying, but the scale of it is disturbing. As chairman of the party, he's worried. We have Femi Fani-Kayode also being quoted in this day today, saying that, in fact, next week, some senators of the APC, about 22 of them, Punch is reporting 20 of them, will walk out on the party. So these are lessons to be learned, but clearly 2023 election is going to be an election like no other. It's going to be complex. We're going to see, and we're already seeing, realignments. At the moment, the majority status of the APC in the National Assembly is threatened. In the Senate, I think the party is down was down from 70 to 67. Now it's down to just about 49. And the 5 other minority parties that are there have increased their own numbers. So interesting time for Nigerians, and I hope Nigerians will vote wisely, monitoring these developments. So
Senator Philip Ajuda might just be correct when he says the majority is going to turn to the minority. But my issue with this is that, yes, politicians are human like the rest of us. You cannot be expected to work in brazen hostility where your dignity is not respected and what have you. You do have your freedom of association. But the Constitution makes it quite clear for our representatives and our senators, you cannot defect from your party unless there is a division or a merger. So what we're hearing about lack of internal democracy, factions and what have you, falls short of that constitutional standard. So really, if somebody does challenge them in court, they might lose their seats because you're supposed to vacate your seat if you leave your party, apart from those 2 strict circumstances. So here we go again with just observing our constitution in the breach, which just tends to be the norm.
Well, this is already a lame duck government. And in any case, most of the points raised by this persons who are defecting. We'll point to the issue of division within their parties. If you have parallel executives, say for instance in Edo North or your Central, that's already
it's very hard to prove in court
within the party.
That division.
Well, there wouldn't be enough time to go into those details. That's why many of those persons, they are going to other political parties where they think that, you know, they could get a ticket within the window of substitution.
But it's wrong because they all swore an oath allegiance to the Constitution.
Yeah.
So that point needs to be made. Yes, it has to be challenged in court. Yes, it's unlikely to be, but it's wrong of people who have sworn an oath to uphold our Constitution to just flout it because I'm no longer mates with this person. I want to flounce off in a huff. That's not what the Constitution provides.
Well, but
anyway,
that section has been observed more in the breach.
Yes, and it shouldn't be.
There is a moral point to be raised. You will see that in this entire process, many of these politicians, they will come around. I'm a party man. Anything that my party decides, we will work together. We will support the man that has emerged. But we've seen that when politicians say that, they are talking tongue-in-cheek.
Of course.
They want to be called the distinguished senator, even the ones that are extinguished.
Oh,
and that are not in any way distinguished. They want to be called honorable member, even when these are dishonorable members of parliament.
Well,
so it's all about self-interest.
For the rest of their lives, they can be called distinguished senator or honorable. Once you've been there, you're always having, getting to use that title. Anyway, moving on to the next story. Chairman House of Representatives Committee on Electoral Matters, Aishatu Duku, said the Independent National Electoral Commission has agreed to extend the date for the registration of permanent voters' cards. Duku gave the update during plenary on Wednesday. Another lawmaker, Ndudi Elumelu, had expressed concern over INEC's activities and frowned at the agency's threat to close the exercise. But while addressing journalists on the issue, Duku and House spokesperson Benjamin Kalu confirmed that INEC had agreed to extend the registration in compliance with the House resolution, though the number of days for the extension is not made known yet. Meanwhile, INEC is yet to formally announce an extension of the voter registration deadline.
It will not be possible, this is his statement, for INEC to extend to the days we requested. However, they will go back and look at their timelines and then look at how possible, how best they can, be able to make it to increase, the days for registration. Mind you, they are already in court. Here in Abuja, a court has stopped them from closing the date for registration, that is from that 30th. And the court is asking INEC to appear, I think on the 29th, before, the court. So, in essence, INEC is going to inform Nigerians as to how many days they will be able to extend the registration.
You can't get anything more credible on this issue beyond these two people standing before you. There was never a time the chairman of the committee announced to the House that INEC has extended the registration to 60 days from 30th of June. That was a misrepresentation which we don't know where it's coming from, and we want you to retract. For those of you who has published that, it never happened. But as the mover of the motion, what I put across for the House to consider was for it to be extended for 60 days, having in mind of the 90 days of the publishing of this particular register, 90 days of publishing of other issues that they have to do, because many people think it's only registration that INEC handles. There are other responsibilities.
Right, so that's some clarification on that score. INEC did react to that statement that because of a motion moved by the House of Representatives, they will be extending voter registration by 60 days. And they are saying they're bound by court order, so they haven't actually formally announced and they haven't confirmed by how many days they will be extending that exercise.
Well, but the position that we have expressed on this program consistently is that nobody should be denied the right to register or the right of franchise, the right to vote and be voted for. And that on the basis of that alone, while we recognize the fact that Nigerians don't respect deadlines. We wait till the last minute. Hence this furore that we have seen at the old parade ground in Abuja, in Opara Square in Enugu, in Amuwo Odofin in Lagos and elsewhere, just because people wait till the last minute. Now, the INEC is insisting that it has not extended anything. What INEC says it has done is just to respect the interim injunction that has been granted SERAP, the Socio-Economic and Accountability Project, SERAP, and 185 other civil society groups that decided to go to court to say that an injunction should be granted against INEC from ending voter registration on June 30. Now, the Court of Justice Wolaji Olajuwon, Federal High Court sitting in Abuja, has now said, okay, fix the date, for the hearing of the issues on June 29. So what will happen? So INEC now, what INEC has done so far is to just show that, we respect the rule of law. If the court has said this, we should abide by it. But what Nigerians are asking for, and they should listen, is that, look, this thing called continuous voters registration, if it is continuous, why should we have deadline? You can continue. And yesterday I was quoting Mr. Yahaya Bello, the resident electoral commission in the Federal Capital Territory, who says, well, even if you register, that's just the first step. They will still have to go and print the cards. And the cards may not arrive for the next 6-7 months. So what we have to say to INEC is that whenever a decision is taken before the end of the month, or the court rules one way or the other, then, of course, it must be possible for them to speed up the logistics. INEC cannot come and tell people, it will take you 1 year to get this voter's card. They cannot say that and then just say, well, it's just the logistics. It's a process. What process? People are saying we want to vote. Because, as you have said, this 2023 general election is beginning to look like a battle. And in any case, why is the problem only in the south? In the north, we understand that there are no machine problems, that, registration is going on smoothly. Is it that more people in the north registered earlier, and southerners just waited till the last minute, and they are now playing all kinds of cards, ethnic cards? The other day in Amuwo Odofin, they said it was Tinubu. We said, no, it can't be Tinubu. Maybe it's INEC. Can INEC just look at this? Yeah, in Enugu, where there was a problem, the machine suddenly surfaced. So why is this difference in the pattern of registration? But I don't want to push that line. As a man who wants to conclude my career in the public space, as a statesman, I don't want to play that kind of politics. But it's important to just state it.
It is extremely important to state it. And INEC might want to take a look at their timelines, because if it's not IPAC today asking for an extension, it would be voters. So there is something to the rigidity of their timelines that just don't seem to work for the general public who they're supposed to serve. Well, that's all on the news headlines. We'll take a short break now. When we return, we'll have Rota Sadiri, Michael Wilson to give us updates on Africa and global business activities across the globe. Please stay with us. Welcome back to the Morning Show here on Arise News. Our dependable Rota Sadiri is here to give us an African business update. Good morning, Rotis.
Good morning, Tunde. Good morning, Doctor. Good morning to all our viewers. Yeah, we begin with Benue. Governor Samuel Ortom was speaking with journalists yesterday in Makurdi, the state capital, about the challenges that the state is facing in paying salaries. He mentioned three particular issues. One, he says the rising costs of, or rising overhead costs. So, I mean, you could attribute that to maybe the power, diesel costs. You could attribute that to administrative costs, pensions, so on and so forth. Two, he said the inability of the state oil company, NNPC, to remit money to the Federation account. And we all know why the NNPC has not been remitting money to the Federation account. It's because of the fact that the increased cost of subsidies have not allowed it to do that. And then three, it says inability to raise internally generated revenue. I think he also attributed that to insecurity. So overhead costs, subsidies impacting NNPC's ability to put money in the Federation account, and insecurity. So you have to imagine that Benue State is not the only state in this situation, because there are a number of other states that are owing salaries. To power, the Eco Electricity Distribution Company also press statement in Lagos yesterday. Their managing director said they've lost about 4 billion naira to vandalism and theft of cables. They mentioned Mushi and Ijora as areas in Lagos where they've been particularly hit by that. The cables are being unearthed, dug up, and then sold on the black market, and they're saying it's giving them trouble with respect to power distribution to certain areas of the state, as if we didn't already have enough issues with power. So they said it's something that's ongoing, that they're pleading with the authorities to try to get that under control. To oil and gas, Owando, they've put their long-running shareholder disputes behind them. If you remember, the Securities and Exchange Commission suspended their annual general meeting in 2018 over litigation that was brought forward by Ainsbury Investment Incorporated, which is an indirect shareholder. As a result of that, the company said that there were delays in them providing financials, which was delayed since 2018, 2019, 2020. So they finally released their 2019 and 2020 financials. There were, of course, as anticipated, losses. I think 2019 was a full year loss of about 203 billion naira. 2020 loss was about 132. As a result of the delay in the annual general meeting, the shareholders were not brought up to speed as to what was going on. They said they suffered about 148 billion for full year 2019, 148 billion in impairment impacts to goodwill as a result of loss of shareholder value due to the ongoing litigation. But, key point here is that the SEC did not find Owando in the wrong as far as any, corporate malfeasance or corporate governance issues are concerned. So that, is that. They've also put out their results, and they're now saying that, well, look, going forward, we should be able to get more up-to-date results from the company. But again, with all this happening, there was a COVID pandemic. So if you think about the 132 billion naira loss that they suffered, the other oil and gas companies in the space globally suffered that as well. So they've put that behind them. And then to Ghana, this is Dr. Ernest Addison, the governor of the Bank of Ghana, saying that Ghana is going through some soul searching with respect to revisiting the IMF over getting a loan. As you know, Ghana has been, running a fiscal deficit for years. That was exacerbated by the pandemic with the increased amount of money they had to spend to prop up the economy. You've seen their bond yields, going through the roof. And that relationship, when your yields are going up, the price of your bond is going down. If the price of your bond is going down, that means that investors are selling it. If they're selling it, they're probably losing confidence in your ability to pay back your debt. By the way, I watched some Ghanaian television yesterday. The deputy finance minister was brought on live TV to account for COVID spending. It was I think it was a minority member of parliament that brought the deputy finance minister on television to account for the spending. You had to have seen this. It was so theatrical. He brought out a stack of papers. They were going line by line. And to the deputy finance minister's defense, he did do his best to try to, account for this. But Ghana is just very transparent, and just putting, having the official come out there, going back and forth, it just shows you the extent to which for them to be going line by line over every CD that has come in from external sources to try to aid the structure of their finances. It tells you how bad things are and why they are now considering going to the IMF. No official word yet, but it just tells you the path that they're treading right now. It's a bit tough.
So after all the soul searching, is it inevitable that they are going to go to the
Tundu, it looks,
right? So
it looks like it might happen. It looks like it might happen.
But with regards to Benue, I mean, it's just a perfect storm, isn't it?
Right.
They took a loan of 41 billion naira a few months ago to pay pensions and salaries, which is never a good idea. And they're back in this hole again, owing pensions and salaries. And you'll recall, Dr. Abati, every single time Governor Autumn has ever criticized President Buhari, which is regular, you get people from the presidency to go, well, go pay your salaries. So it's like a constant thing with Benue State. But how exactly is Benue going to dig themselves out of this? The insecurity issue is huge. It cannot be overlooked. The food basket of the country, most people cannot even go to their farms. You dare not. So really, what does Benue do in practical terms?
Benue has to hope that they get some kind of assistance. But where is it going to come from? And this brings us back to this subsidy discussion, because it tells you the extent to which the impact of these subsidies and the inability of NNPC to put money into the federation account is impacting states. With, you know, the model, the sharing formula and how that goes, that shows you the extent to which this is impacting states. So, I mean, look at the capital importation numbers that came in. What, 5 states in Nigeria only got money that came in from foreign investors. So, Benue wasn't one of them. So, you know, it's tough.
Okay, it's tough. I agree. But the bigger question has to do with the viability of the states. The states in Nigeria, 36 of them, and the FCT, they are centers of consumption.
Correct.
Rather than productivity. They are bull-in-hand units of rent collection by units of the federation that are not producing, that are not economically viable. And you know, those who have studied the subject tell us that, look, once upon a time in this country, the Western region was competing with the Eastern region, was competing with the Northern region, because these were economically viable units and also politically viable, and there was competition, there was productivity, there was federalism. But with the cost of oil, the Dutch disease, everybody now relies on what they go and collect from the federal government at every month. They call it a FAC allocation meeting. Everybody is waiting for what to be allocated, right? Hence, the centers of productivity in parts of the country disappeared, right? So, Governor Otom can now come and say, oh, NNPC is not contributing money to the FAC POS. And NNPC says, look, this money is used for under recovery. If our refineries are not working, we don't have the right policies with regard to how we manage the country's main resource, then NNPC will say there's no money to give you. And progressively, since January this year, even before now, INEC, I said INEC, it must be in my head. NNPC has been saying, look, we really cannot give money. So increasingly, there's very little to share. Yeah, it talks about the IDPs, you know, that, okay, security challenge, well, that's a problem. But it's not a problem for the workers who deserve their wages.
Of course. So
there's security in the problem, but it's government. You are part of the government. What is government doing about security? Samuel Otom says standard response is to come and weep on television and say federal government is not working. They don't even allow him to attend the meetings in the villa. This is, again, to be fair, an indication of the problems within the system. Then he says IGR. That was another reason that your father is difficult to coordinate. When governments or governors talk about IGR, what they are talking about is that they want to tax the people more. And we, the people, have been suffering heavily under multiple taxation. So what we would like to hear from Samuel Otom, the governor of Benue State, is, okay, what ideas does he have about what can be done in the best interest of the people? It's not enough to just come and say, Benue State has not paid salaries for 3 months, and we won't pay because we can't pay. There is a play with that title. I don't remember. There's a play titled, We Won't Pay Because We Can't Pay. You know, but I'll remember, you know, one of those plays we used to teach. And then as for Ghana, the central bank governor is saying, oh, we borrowed from IMF, 17 times. We don't want to keep borrowing. We want to do soul searching. What soul searching do they want to do in Ghana or in any other African country? Our problem is leadership. Have they not tried, have they not done soul searching in Ghana? They introduced
E-levy.
Right? Mobile money tax. They also called it. They reduced salaries of government officials, right? They increased interest rate to 19%. And the people are saying, look, all of this is not solving our problem because there's cost of living crisis also in Ghana. So governor of the Central Bank going to London School of Economics to say we are doing soul searching. What soul searching are they doing? Is it when Ghana becomes like a Sri Lanka? That, they will suddenly come up with some illumination. It's not enough for African leaders to just say, oh, there is crisis in Ukraine. There is a supply chain problem, coming from China because of COVID lockdowns.
Right.
Okay, what efforts are they themselves making? It's always very easy to blame the outsider. We blame the outsider for everything, including all the evils of colonialism and slavery, even when we ourselves are complicit in the crisis on the continent. They should continue with the soul searching.
Have you heard the new Beyonce single, You Can't Break My Soul? Have you heard the new Beyonce? Yeah, so maybe that's the soundtrack for Ghana.
Oh dear. Thank you so much, Reuters. Moving on to our business update. Michael Wilson joins us now from London. Good morning, Mr. Wilson.
Good morning. So shares in Asia Pacific mixed, really. Investors still mulling over, trying to work out whether there's a recession coming up, whether there's going to be a hard landing in the United States and a hard landing everywhere in the world, basically. This has taken on, the similar kind of thing that it did yesterday. Hong Kong up about 1%, mainland China struggling for direction, basically, as I'm looking at the figures right now. And as far as the rest of the Asia markets are concerned, not a lot moving, basically, but you wouldn't expect a great deal to be moving as we speak right now. China, now, there's the BRICS, and I'll come on to talking about those in a second, but there is this mixture of countries like Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa are having a virtual economic conference, and China is vowing what it described as more forceful tools to achieve this year's economic targets. BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, coined by a very distinguished economist here, Jim O'Neill, who became a government advisor. Actually, he coined that phrase many years ago. It's up to its 14th and so on, its 14th annual convention. It's being very, very closely looked at to see if there is any kind of signal coming out of China about helping the economy. So far, we've seen that they may extend the tax exemption for the EV industry. Bidders are weighing up what they're preparing to offer for Toshiba, that troubled organization, $22 billion so far. It is, in inverted commas, exploring new ways in which it's going to go. The idea is it should go private. At the moment, those bidders are bidding on a 27% premium to Toshiba's share price. So they're quite keen on that. President Putin from Russia, now the BRICS, this block of countries, actually, now they all have not condemned his invasion of Ukraine. And let me remind you, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. It was conceived in 2006. China and India have also increased trade with Russia. It's likely that China and India will be open to suggestions that Putin may call on BRICS to establish joint oil and gas refining facilities with Russia. As far as the global automotive industry is concerned, raw material costs for electric vehicles have doubled during the pandemic. Cobalt, nickel, and lithium, they're all essential for the production of batteries of those cars. And automakers from General Motors to Tesla, and including startups like Lucid and Rivian, have significantly raised their prices on new vehicles. Let us turn our attention, if we may, to the United States. That rally didn't really last a great deal of time, and Powell's been fairly hawkish. He reiterated the central bank's stance to fight inflation. The Dow down 47 points yesterday. He's actually, Jay Powell, the chairman of the Fed, is actually using the R word, using recession. Growing concerns of a recession, particularly have weighed on stocks and Wall Street. What about Main Street? That really, I think, is the most important thing. But he re-stressed his resolve to tame inflation inflation, and the Fed will stay the course until it sees compelling evidence that inflation is moving down. And the way to do that without taking the economy into recession is, in his words, significantly more challenging. By contrast, Mark Zuckerberg of Facebook, now called Meta, envisions 1 billion people in the metaverse spending hundreds of dollars each. This could be a significant part of the way in which the world is going to go. At the moment, they'll be looking at avatars and digital goods and all those kind of things that we sort of understand. Virtual technology, designing everything from your wallpaper down to cars, basically. New Tesla factories, talking about electric cars, according to Elon Musk, are losing billions of dollars in Germany and in Texas. He's calling these companies now a gigantic money furnace, or gigantic money furnaces. COVID-19 lockdowns in China have not helped. And if you remember, he was talking to employers earlier in the week, and he was warning them. And he was warning of significant job cuts coming up. As far as the EU is concerned, now every summer, these gas pipelines that Russia sends into Europe go under what's described as maintenance. And that's becoming maintenance now in inverted commas, because Germany is fearing that there may be a cut back of gas supply. It may be stopped altogether. That's a clear weaponizing of gas, and it fears that Russia could take advantage of its annual maintenance, imposing a winter energy crisis on Europe. Gazprom might stop gas deliveries altogether. Germany, if you remember, enjoying or not some rather mixed relationships with Russia over the years, particularly under the former Chancellor. Now maybe Europe's reaping the benefits or not, if the case may be. To the UK, the new infrastructure bank is pledging to make direct equity investments. It's funded. There he is, Lord Flint, in charge of it. £22 billion worth, defending the body using taxpayers' money, along with private investment. There is a certain worry in this country that taxpayers' money is being used to solve private investment. Well, it has been doing that for years. Nothing new about that particularly. The UK rail strike, again, the second day of a full strike today, so nothing moving, but a lot of little things coming out of this now. The Transport Secretary has been accused of wrecking negotiations between Network Rail and the unions. Lawmakers are trying to get Parliament to agree, or will do over the coming weeks, to agree to have agency workers stepping in to strikes like this. Now, it's not going to solve the rail strike, and you have to ask the question, where are they going to get the skills from if they're going into all sorts of industries? Network Rail itself, which is the management part of this, is saying it's going to go over the heads of the union and poll the 40,000 RMT members directly as to what they're going to do. And add this into the mix. There is a separate thing called Mersey Rail, nothing to do with Network Rail, and they have achieved a 7% wage increase, which is roughly where the unions are headed as far as RMT is concerned. Treasury has been telling cabinet ministers, if you want to impose or you want to give public sector workers more money, it comes from existing budgets. We're not going to supply any more. Asda, which is one of the main supermarkets in the country, has actually come out yesterday. Its chairman, Stuart Rose, was talking to media outlets yesterday, saying that shoppers are asking people who sit at the tills to stop at £30. Thank you very much indeed. So when it gets to £30, the tills stop and they put what they've got back, or not, as the case may be, leave it at the till. But that seems to be about the limit. Asda's got its own cost of living data, and it's showing that on average, households have £44 less a week. £44 less a week of disposable income. That's a fall of nearly 18%. And finally, oil is edging lower in Asia on the usual recession worries. When I say lower, we're still looking at an Asia price of Brent at 108 and WTI at 103. That's the global view this morning.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. To go back to your story about Asda, is that £30 for a weekly shop or not?
It is. It's for a weekly shop. But what they're saying is, I don't really understand how this works, because I mean, you ought to have some kind of mental idea of how much you're actually spending. But apparently, according to the chairman of Asda, Stuart Rose, who was interviewed yesterday, he was saying that when it gets to £30, they say, all right, it's enough. That's enough. That's all we're going to pay. We'll put the rest back. Now, I'm not sure how true this is, because actually it does involve, doesn't it, maybe not putting your most expensive items first, but that appears to be it. In other words, there are complete changes of behaviour now as weekly shopping is concerned. Which leads me to my next point. Today's Financial Times has Rishi Sunak defending the 10% rise from on state pensions, which is perfectly defensible. Frankly, I don't know how pensioners were really expected to live on, is it £9,000 a year? With the current prices, I think that's perfectly defensible. But the teachers' unions threatening to go on strike, that is really concerning. What do you make of the approach that's been taken by the Education Secretary, Nadim Zawahi, saying it will be unforgivable if they go on strike? Is that kind of attempt at emotional blackmail going to be effective? Yeah, I think I take you actually from the teachers to what the Treasury's been saying and said in Cabinet yesterday, that Cabinet ministers, for their own, including the Education Secretary, will be funding any kind of increases out of their own budgets. There is no more money to give to unions. As far as the pensioners are concerned, this was a manifesto promise from the Conservatives when they actually took power. That increase, this triple lock, which is either wage inflation, actual shopping CPI inflation, or 2.5%, whichever's the greater. That's what pensioners actually get. And a lot of people are saying this is absolutely inflationary. I'm not sure that it is really. I mean, I'm not sure that pensioners are that big a band, quite honestly, in the UK. I think much more importantly is that it's almost buying votes, really.
Okay, quickly, Michael, still on this issue about what Rishi Sunak said, there was a point he made that the reason it's better to increase pension by April next year with about £1,000 will be that it will not add to the inflationary crisis that everyone faces, because the cost of the pension has nothing to do with the cost of the goods and services that we consume. Is that a strong argument? You know, even if other people, teachers, rail workers are asking for pay rise. That's number one. Number two, I wanted to ask you about this Mercy Rail 7% deal in Liverpool, which in any case is one-off. There's no agreement that will happen all the time. Is this something that can be reproduced at the network level? Because there's been a suggestion to that effect. Is it a model that Network Rail and cabinet ministers who are acting on concern can adopt, you know, to solve this rail strike that ended in acrimony yesterday with Grand Charles calling people liars and, you know, leaders of the rail union, RMT, accusing Grand Charles of wrecking negotiations. And finally, Twitter is introducing 2,500 words. Is this grandstanding on the part of Twitter? Is it an attempt to improve the digital public space? And does this have anything to do with Elon Musk?
I have no idea. Absolutely no idea about Twitter at all. Yeah, they're increased. I don't know if it's got anything to do with Elon Musk at all, quite honestly. I mean, if you're suggesting it might be a defence from the present management about him, I simply do not know. Does it actually improve Twitter to be able to add more words to your comments? I don't know. As you know, I've said in the past, I feel that social media is one of those kind of things. You want your freedom, then you pay for it, and that's what Twitter is all about right at the moment. As far as the business is concerned, I don't know how they intend to monetize it. Until it goes one way or the other, I think it's far too soon to say why they're suddenly increasing their word count. I mean, it may be that it gives it more relevance. I think you should be really, really careful about how you use social media. It's an unrecognized tool right now, and if you add that to what Mark Zuckerberg is saying about the metaverse and all this sort of tech advances that are actually happening, I think we have no idea what the shape of life is actually going to be. So I I don't know the answer to that question. As far as Merseyrail is concerned, it's separate from Network Rail. I would be very surprised if the government allows this to happen. In other words, a 7%. Although the union leaders at the RMT will be looking at Merseyrail and saying, "There's the 7%. That's roughly what we want." And as far as they are at the moment, there is a difference between 3.5%, as I understand it now, offered by Network Rail, but that's on condition of modernisation. What shape the railways are going to be in, and how many commuters actually use them after all this, is an open question. I really don't know.
Well, thank you very much, Michael Wilson. We'll see you again tomorrow.